What could have transformed a once sociable individual into a serial killer? Alexander Pichushkin was a wonderful young man whom everyone adored. However, as time passed, he developed a habit of killing and became Russia's worst criminal ever. He was known to have murdered many people, both adults and children. He always attacked from behind, hoping to catch the victim off guard and to avoid getting blood on his clothes. Pichushkin also had a preferred technique for murdering his victims covertly. According to him, life without murder is like life without food. At first, people started disappearing, and no one noticed. Sometimes family members waited the required 3 days before calling the police to report a missing person, but the police rarely did anything. As the disappearances increased, there was fear, which led to speculative thinking that there was a serial killer around. However, no one was certain. By then, the number of missing people was approaching 30, and no one had returned. You're probably wondering what Pichushkin did to become Russia's worst criminal ever. How did he become so cruel and hostile? Are you also curious about the method that he used to murder his victims? Well, I guess you want to know what caused this and how many people he ended up killing. If you're eager to find out the answers to these questions, sit back and relax while we share this enthralling, suspenseful, and touching crime story. But before we go any further, please make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell for more fascinating true crime videos that will blow your mind. Alexander Pichushkin, also known as the Chessboard Killer and the Bitsa Park Maniac, was born on April 9, 1974, in Moscow, Russia. He lived on the 5th floor of a 2-bedroom apartment with his mother, Natalia Elmoradovna, his younger half-sister, his mother's husband, and their son. The family's apartment building was a 6-minute walk from the northern end of Bitsa Park. Pichushkin used to be a social child, but all of that changed after he suffered a head injury, which caused a shift in his behavior. It all began when he fell backward off a swing, which then swung back and struck him in the forehead. Experts speculate that the accident harmed Pichushkin's frontal cortex, which is known to cause poor impulse control and a proclivity for aggression. It's recorded that Pichushkin began to act irrationally and hostile after the accident. Because of this condition, Pichushkin was emotionally and physically harassed at school. Pichushkin's rage grew as a result of this abuse, and his behavior worsened. Due to his aggressive behavior, his mother decided to transfer him from the regular school to the special needs school. When Pichushkin reached adolescence, his maternal grandfather realized that he was extremely intelligent and believed that the special needs school was a waste of his natural abilities. He felt that Pichushkin wasn't involved in any activities at home, and that his school placed more of an emphasis on overcoming his disability than on encouraging achievement. He then pulled him out of the school. Pichushkin moved into his grandfather's house, where he was encouraged to engage in intellectual activities outside of the classroom. His grandfather introduced him to chess after realizing that it was a passion of his. Soon, Pichushkin began competing in games in Bitsa Park against older men. Unfortunately, even as Pichushkin reached the end of his adolescence, he was still being bullied by the children around him. In turn, he became even more hostile, and things even got worse when his grandfather passed away. The loss of his grandfather had a profound effect on him and caused him great emotional distress. He began to drink in excess in an effort to both stop the pain of the loss and calm his extremely aggressive tendencies. As a result, he was compelled to return to his mother's home and re-enroll in school. He continued to play chess in Bitsa Park, even after returning to his mother's house. As time went on, Pichushkin eventually developed the sadistic hobby of recording himself threatening children. He watched these videos over and over to reassert his power, but his murderous desires were unsatisfied. On July 27, 1992, at the age of 18, Pichushkin committed his first murder. He intended to murder 64 people and required the assistance of someone to help him carry out his evil agenda. So he approached his friend and classmate, Mikhail Odichuk, who initially thought that he was joking. However, Pichushkin had made plans for them to meet in Bitsa Park so they could work together to develop a strategy on how to complete the assignment. When they got to the agreed-upon location, Odichuk realized that Pichushkin was very serious. Odichuk changed his mind and tried to get out of the situation, making an effort to leave, and informing Pichushkin that he no longer wanted to play the role. Pichushkin was so enraged by this that he repeatedly hit his friend in the head with a hammer. After killing him, he pushed his body into a well at Bitsa Park, after which he went back to his mother's house, which was just a short distance away. The following day, the police discovered Odichuk's body, and during the course of their investigation, they learned from witnesses that he had been last seen walking towards the park with Pichushkin. 3 days later, on July 30th, Pichushkin was taken into custody at his mother's house and taken to a Moscow police station for questioning. Ultimately, he was released because there was no evidence connecting him to the murder. Unfortunately, his release meant that he could kill several more people after this. His preferred methods of murder included hammer blows to the back of the victim's head, or inserting a broken vodka bottle into the victim's skull before pushing them down the well. Another murder was that of Yevgeny Pronin, a 52-year-old man with whom Pichushkin played chess. Pichushkin invited Pronin to take a walk after their game, claiming that it was the anniversary of his dog's death and that he wanted to visit the grave in Bitsa Park. Pronin agreed and went with him. Upon arriving at a lonely spot in Bitsa Park, Pichushkin brought out a bottle of vodka and offered the man a drink. They both drank a toast to the dog before Pichushkin struck Pronin in the head. After making sure that his victim was dead, Pichushkin dumped his body into a nearby well. However, between May 2001 and September 2005, Pichushkin would attack 36 people, the majority of whom were elderly, homeless men, though he also occasionally went after women and children. He would always befriend his victims and lure them to a lonely place. He would offer them a bottle of vodka under the guise of mourning his dog, and then kill them with either a hammer or a bottle. Despite this, 3 of his victims were miraculously able to survive their injuries. One of them was the pregnant saleswoman he lured into Bitsa Park and pushed into the same well. She survived and informed the authorities, but she was forced to drop her claim because she was an illegal immigrant. Another victim was Mikhail Lobov, a teenage skater who was yet another survivor. In March 2002, Pichushkin lured him into Bitsa Park with the promise of cigarettes and vodka, then struck him on the head and pushed him down the well. When he got out, he confronted Pichushkin, who threatened him with police arrest. On November 15, 2003, Pichushkin invited Konstantin Polikarpov, his neighbor, to Bitsa Park. Upon getting there, Pichushkin threw him into the well after striking him 3 times with a hammer. Luckily for him, he survived and was able to get out, but he suffered a head injury that made it impossible for him to recall the attack. Pichushkin always left the crime scene after he pushed the 3 surviving victims into the well. However, every time that he successfully killed someone, he would mark a square on his chessboard, which he carried with him at all times. Pichushkin would commit his last murder on June 14, 2006, when he offered to take Marina Moskalyeva, a 36-year-old coworker, for a stroll. Moskalyeva agreed to go with him and wrote a note to her son informing him that she was with Pichushkin. Moskalyeva's body would later be found on June 14, 2006, in Bitsa Park, still bearing the wounds that had come to be identified with those of the Chessboard killer. During the investigation, she was found to have a Moscow Metro ticket in her possession. This prompted authorities to examine surveillance footage from the Metro system, where she was captured just hours before her death. She was discovered to be in the company of Pichushkin. Pichushkin was finally apprehended and convicted of 49 murders and 3 attempted murders on October 24, 2007. Following the verdict, he was sentenced to life in prison, with the first 15 years being spent in solitary confinement. Do you think Pichushkin got the right punishment for all of the lives he took? What other punishment do you think he deserved? Please leave your thoughts on this sad story in the comment section below. Please also remember to share this video so that others who enjoy true crime can watch it. As always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.